we live in the moment. Every second we have opportunities to do something better, to understand better, and also acquire more knowledge, to evolve, etc. But we need some framework, right? We're not just born today. So our life are a continuum in time and space. We keep coming back for more knowledge and maybe to fix errors that we made in past lives. So there is a lot in Vedic astrology about looking at the past so we don't repeat the mistakes and we can actually fulfill wishes and fix major problems in life, because we all have a set of goals, which is how we go through life. And then sometimes we say, oh, these goals didn't work so well. What else is there? And that one, what else is there, sometimes can be a little painful, but it's a trigger to wanting to evolve more.
Welcome back to the Infinite Life podcast. You're here with me, your host, Katish Haberfield. And today I have the wonderful Lalitha Donatella Reuk, who is coming live from New York. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Katish. Very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Italian-born Lalitha Donatella Reuk is an international best-selling author and speaker, a certified life coach, spiritual mentor, and Vedic astrologer. She holds a BA in Vedic Arts and Science from the American Academy of Vedic Art and Science. Her most recent 2024 book, Think and Receive Miracles, From Past Lives to the Quantum Mind, was a #1 Amazon bestseller in both the USA and Australia. She studied with Dr. Deepak Chopra and for the last 15 years with Dr. Pillai. Since 2005, Lalitha has been helping thousands of people achieve abundance and spiritual growth through her programs, blogs, videos, and speaking engagements. She's the founder of Bliss Lab, an online coaching business designed to help her clients reach their highest potential.
The reason that I have invited Lalitha on today is because not only has she published 2 books that are of interest to people who listen to the podcast, because they're all about spirituality and past lives and Vedic astrology and learning all about various cycles and wisdom of yogic knowledge, but also you're actually open to talking about past lives. A lot of people that I talk to get a little bit of a rap over the knuckles with the specialty in past lives, because it's, oh no, you need to be focusing only in the present moment now, and all the wisdom of all the masters has always talked about present lives. And so when I read your book, Think and Receive Miracles, From Past Lives to the Quantum Mind, I was like, aha, he is a Vedic astrologer who will talk to me about past lives. This is good. This is right up my alley.
Absolutely. We live in the moment. Every second we have opportunities to do something better, to understand better, and also acquire more knowledge, to evolve, etc. But we need some framework, right? We're not just born today. So our life are a continuum in time and space. We keep coming back for more knowledge and maybe to fix errors that we made in past lives. So there is a lot in Vedic astrology about looking at the past so we don't repeat the mistakes and we can actually fulfill wishes and fix major problems in life, because we all have kind of like a set of goals, which is how we go through life. And then sometimes we say, oh, these goals didn't work so well. What else is there? And that one, what else is there, sometimes can be a little painful, but it's a trigger to wanting to evolve more. So the Naadi readings, for example, are based on palm leaves written by sages thousands of years ago. I know it's hard to wrap our minds around that, because how did these beings know about us? All you give them is a thumbprint, and they know in the name of your father, your mother, your spouse, etc. They know a lot about you. So the past is very relevant. We cannot just dismiss it. And by learning more about the past, and you can see that also in a birth chart, a lot of downloads happen, so to speak. These downloads, like they wake us up. Wow, I've been doing this for so many lifetimes. What can I do now that is either different or better? So we have a lot of choice, I think. We are more when we look deeper, and we don't just sit by and be satisfied by appearances, which you cannot judge a book from the cover.
And I guess one of the things that in Western society, when we look at Western astrology, we tend to make the assumption that it's only about the future. So when we look at it and when we just suddenly think, oh, I don't know much about Vedic astrology, but I'm open to learning about it, and it correlates in a way that we can wrap our head around from Western astrology. There's still the 12 houses, and there's lessons in each of the houses and information for us. But how does the astrological reading that you do for somebody actually indicate past life information? That was the thing that was really curious to me, is where and how and what do you what kind of past life information does it give? And how is it helpful? What is its purpose within Vedic astrology?
Yes, so that's a very interesting question. I find it's very important and fundamental, because why do people go to astrologers? Yes, they want to know more about their future, but also how to fulfill wishes, right? Manifesting is huge for all of us. I believe we come for that. We come for some desires we have, whether they're new desires or old desires. We come for something, for more knowledge, for love and understanding. So in the birth chart, you can see past lives in many ways. All the planets are positions according to who you are, first of all, what you want to do, where have you been. And there's this thing called karma, which is not a philosophy. It's a very simple principle of cause and effect, right? We use this simple metaphor of throwing the ball against the wall. It comes back. It's neutral. It's not judgmental. Nobody's punishing us. We just want to, in this case, get the ball around, if we can continue with that analogy. And with with a birth chart, you can see how to fulfill those wishes, where you need a course correction, what you need to drop and get rid of that is blocking you. Maybe it's some judgment, maybe it's a relationship that is not suitable for you. I don't want to say toxic, but some relationships can be. And or some people want just a better relationship and they come to me. Most people come when they start the period of Saturn. Why? Because it's very sobering. It's a time when you say, oh my goodness, I'm really suffering so much. What can I do? So when we are lucky, we find the help we need. I believe that Vedic astrology is also a good path to healing and literally stopping the waiting, because our pain starts when we have a desire, and until it's fulfilled, we are really suffering. And I know there are different paths philosophically. For example, Buddhism says, oh, life is pain. You shouldn't have any desires. That's not my path. It's not the path of the yogis of South India. And they're called Siddhas. So they are, I would call them spiritual scientists. They have been studying human consciousness for a long time, and they want to help. So why do we have Vedic astrology? Because the sages knew. They knew that Satya Yuga had ended, and then Silver Yuga ended. These are yugas, they're cycles, light, little less light, destruction, which is called Dwapara Yuga, when everybody fights, nuclear wars. Yes, we have had nuclear power before. You can see in the Mahabharata, the epic. And then darkness, which is the period we're living right now. So we're all shocked. What's happening in the world? Why so much destruction? Why so much injustice? Why so much confusion? So we're living that time now. It's called Kali Yuga, Kali, the time of darkness and deception, lies. Everything is reversed, upside down. You know how sometimes there are some systems in place that show things that are bad, but they make them appear as good. And vice versa, things that are good that in modern society are considered, I don't know, you're weird, you're an astrologer, you're you have a crystal ball. No, I don't. I do have my intuition and I cherish it because, as Einstein said, it's a gift from the divine. It's a sacred gift. So to make it short, the birth chart can show you past lives, definitely. Maybe it doesn't tell you, oh, in the 3rd century, you were wearing a military hat and this kind of shoes. Like, you can have an intuitive image, maybe. Sometimes it comes. So the secret of Vedic astrology that nobody will ever tell you, there is 49% of influence from the celestial bodies. It's impossible to ignore them. They are controlling our consciousness. But the remaining 51% is in our hands. Free will and how we get this information, and stop making mistakes that are hurting us and actually getting what we want. Very simply, yeah. So the South Indian yogis said that life should be enjoyed. A 200% life, as my mentor calls it. 200%, 100% material satisfaction, get married, be happy, or just follow the path of the householder, have a house, enjoy beautiful things, but don't get lost in it. And so you have 100% of a spiritual fulfillment, which is 200%. You're happy here, but also you don't get lost in it, and actually you seek a path for self-knowledge and liberation, possibly. Definitely. I like the liberation part.
Yeah, I saw that there was a YouTube video where you did a masterclass on DNA astrology reading. How is that different from just looking at the birth chart to look at your profile?
Oh, yeah, that's a very different path. It's a different system. In other words, we just look at the stars. Vedic astrology is based on these 27 constellations around the ecliptic. The ecliptic is, for those who don't know, it's the imaginary path of the sun throughout the year, right? So that ecliptic, the line, there are all these constellations, and the celestial bodies cross these constellations, and they bring about events. They bring about states of consciousness, states of mind. And so a lot of what we experience in life comes from these constellations. Saturn in that, or Jupiter in Rohini, which is a star in, it's Aldebaran actually, that's Rohini is on Sanskrit, gives different results than, for example, Jupiter in Kritika. Kritika is Alcyon in the Pleiades star cluster. So these celestial bodies gather all this information, this beautiful energy from these stars. Let's call them stars, but they're constellations. They're groups of stars, and they bring events in our lives. At the very least, we wake up one morning and say, you know what? I really want to study history, or I want to go into past lives. I want to find out more about that. And a planet is always behind these decisions. It's amazing. Like in every event, even for cities and countries, there's always a planet or a group of planets. So that's very helpful, I believe, because once you identify the planet, you become more conscious and understand these energies, and you can even have remedies. The beautiful thing about Vedic astrology is that it has remedies. I noticed that in North India, they don't really follow that so much anymore, but in South India, there are all these gods, call them gods, aliens, okay, extraterrestrials who live in galaxies that are way more evolved than ours. And we can gather a lot of blessings and wisdom from that. From them, they want to help us. They're very evolved. And we know who is who. we have lists and names, etc. There are millions of gods or evolved beings who are very benevolent. They're also the bad guys, but we're not talking about them right now.
They have their role as well in your soul's growth, right?
Yes, it's the divine design, because we need to see both to make decisions, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, is it in this DNA astrology reading that's how you find out which celestial beings can help you most. Is that
yeah, very
okay?
good. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And also,
just from your book, that's you mentioned it in your book, Think and Receive Miracles, and that's where I'm like, it says here information on celestial beings who can help you most, and I'm like, I want to ask about that.
yes, so it depends on the planets. This usually also depends on your heart's desire. Like some people like to pray to Jesus. I follow Jesus, not so much Christianity anymore, even though I was Catholic. I didn't find that it was for me. I tried to follow like everybody else, but in my country, most people were at that time when I lived in Italy were Catholic, Caucasian, Italian born, and everything. And there was no diversity almost, but now it's different. Lots of immigration from Africa, Eastern Europe. So Italy has become more diverse. I like that because I think we need to enrich each other with other cultures and more understanding and more collaboration, I believe, primarily. So some people like to pray to Lakshmi. Lakshmi is a benevolent being, and I think I talked about it in Bliss Lab because most people are looking for wealth. Even rich people are looking for more money. Poor people obviously need their basic sustenance. They need food, they need housing, etc., medicine. So we all have these needs. And there are these beings who cannot intervene until we call on them and we pray or we just invoke them with some sound. It's all about frequencies. For example, the energy of Lakshmi will be very different from the archetype Shiva. Shiva is the being who is eternal, who destroys galaxies that are lived their lives. It's enough after a billion years or trillions. So everything, there is creation and dissolution. They're both forces. Yeah, so there are a lot of names of these beings. I like, for example, I like to pray to Ganesha. He's over there in the background. So who is Ganesha? Is a being who controls all the subtle forces. He's an elephant being. It's an archetype, of course. Maybe it looks different. In my intuitive vision, is pure light. And the elephant is very intelligent. He has a huge hippocampus, right? He has phoniconomo neurons like humans. So intelligent elephants, right? Everybody knows that. Some animals are extremely evolved and intelligent more than others. So Ganesha for sure can bring you more intelligence and also can remove obstacles. And obstacles are unforeseen in the past, present, or future. So I like to invoke him in the morning when I wake up. I just say a quick prayer to Ganesha and say, please clear the obstacles today so my day is smooth. So I do that. And you can also invoke a being for wealth, for love, also for, I don't want to go into medical astrology. It's a whole field. I do some of that, but not so much with my clients. I like to know. But also you can pray for good health, for perfect health. Definitely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And question, or you want to go?
Yeah, deep? Yes, but I also wanted to know, like you could pick any celestial being randomly, right? Mm-hmm. But does any of the Vedic astrology show you a recommendation based on your chart? Okay, this particular celestial being would be best because you've got this placement, or do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. So you can look in your birth chart and see which planets are more important. They are bad and good planets. It's a simplification. No planet can be only bad or only good. So according to those planets, you will have an inclination. Maybe you're not totally aware of it. And maybe the astrologer can tell you, hey, if you pray to this being, all of a sudden you'll get a better job. And you meet a better partner. So these beings are very much connected with your planets, right? Everything is interconnected. Mm-hmm. And when there is a flow, like you can go up the mountain with a trail, or you can choose your own way and take a chance. I don't know. Maybe you wanted to choose a safe trail, right? Because somebody else has done the job for you.
Yeah, I seem to take the difficult path, so it's good to know that there's an easy path with the being.
Yes, exactly. So when I lived in Italy in the 80s, I was not spoiled. I was always very mature, I think, for my age, too much, because my childhood was difficult. My parents had a lot. They were very bright people. They had like achievements. They were well known in their fields. And I had everything I needed, but I find that I could have just stayed in Italy, have an easier life. No, I married an American lawyer, moved out of my comfort zone. I left Rome, my apartment in Rome. Of course, I left my family, first of all, and friends. And then it was an adventure. It was tough in the beginning, but I didn't. I always had a meal. I always had a good, decent life. Yeah, we were not suffering so much, but it was a shock culturally, etc. Yeah, I tended to put myself in situations where I want to gather more knowledge. Yeah, for also love. In my case, it was also the love part. And it was, yeah, it was an adventure, definitely. Yeah. I was lucky also because I had the support I needed. Yeah.
Yeah. And can you give us an example of how, either for yourself or a client, if you want to talk generically, how you've used the Vedic astrology to help them overcome something karmically that they've dealing with in this life that they had troubles with in a previous lifetime?
Yeah, there's a lot of that actually. Most people are motivated by fear and pain. We all have the time when we panic, and that's when we ask for help. So, yeah, so there is that. And some people are motivated by having more love. So, definitely, you can go into the planets and see, I would say 75% analysis, and then there's that 25% of intuition. And the intuition, being guided by great masters, and they've told me that the intuitive part most of the time is more important than all the analysis and the study of the planets, the astronomical events, the astrological events. For example, how does that work? Let me give you an example, practical one. For example, after studying the birth chart of a woman, a person who reached out to me, I studied everything for about an hour, a little more than an hour. Then, as I was praying for how can I help? How can I serve this soul? How can I guide her in these questions she had? And then I saw an archetype, a god. I had an image, Muruga. He had two wives. And I thought, oh, I am sure it's about that. And in fact, yeah, so she was telling me, yeah, I'm suffering so much. My husband is a girlfriend, and so I was able to guide her better because, yes, I could see which planets were more likely to help her, how to strengthen those planets, and how to do the remedies so these planets wouldn't hurt her so much and bring all this suffering, and also to find a better partner if she wanted to. But I offered various possibilities, and she chose one that was more likely for her.
Yeah. In Think and Receive Miracles, you talk about some of your own discoveries of past lives, and you talk quite a lot about the planet, the dimension of Mu, civilization of Mu, Lemuria. So I just thought you might like to share a little bit about your experience with discovering that.
I believe everybody's remembering their past lives now, either through a therapist like you, or through Vedic astrology or other ways, also just in meditation. The first time I remember the past life was in the 1990s. No, actually, maybe 2000, around that time. I was in meditation. I had no expectations. I was just doing a simple technique. All of a sudden, I saw myself. I looked different. I was still a white woman. It was a pretty woman. I knew that was that was me in a different life. It was like, oh, that's how I looked. And I saw her dresses, her clothes were very nice, 1940s. And I was shocked. And I thought, wow, that's why I hate that part of Italy. I can't stand it. It's a very beautiful region. Maybe I should say it's called Emilia Romagna, the city Bologna. There's a lot of culture. It's a beautiful city. I've been there too in this life, but I didn't really. There's something about that region that brings me suffering. There's no reason. It's completely unconscious, subconscious. So now I suddenly understood that's why I never liked that time. There was war. There were all these events, historical events at that time. And there were problems in every war you can imagine. So I had some privilege. Also, there was some suffering and bad decisions I made, like with marriage, etc. And at that time, a lot was revealed to me, and why I needed to change a course of action, like my way of thinking, etc. So it was very helpful. It was painful. It lasted less than a second. We don't understand time sometimes. We get confused about time. We all have this illusion about time. Actually, everything can be understood telepathically within a femtosecond. We don't understand a femtosecond or even there are smaller units of time. But less than a second, I understood my whole past life. And I thought, that's why I met these people, that person, this person, that's the role. It's so fast. So it's a blessing. And a lot of problems disappear just that way. So I was able to course correct a lot of things that I was doing. Yeah.
I understand. It does. It seems to somebody who hasn't experienced it highly unlikely, but it's true. And it's that kind of knowing that you just cannot shake off because it is so true. It's so fundamental. And you can go and do a formal meditation and do a formal regression session to explore it if you don't believe it. But once you've done enough of those, or if you've done enough meditations in your life or quiet introspective thinking, you can access it yourself. Because let's face it, what people call the Akashic record is just your superconscious mind anyway.
That's right. We know everything, but why don't we know? First of all, there's a way we have our consciousness clogged with a lot of information. We need to do our work. There's no mistake with that. 30 years are barely enough. I realized I don't know anything. I went very deep into the scriptures, into all the research. I've done a lot of work, but I realized, no, that's not what it is about. And then you'll be guided. You'll be guided as you evolve. Hopefully we're all works in progress. But the sages who perfected their lives in one lifetime over the course, maybe over, I don't know, 1 million lifetimes. And because we come back a lot. And we have access to the Akashic record, not only. We are omniscient beings. When we calm the mind, a lot of information is revealed. And my other past lives came through the Naadi readings. Again, there are these sages, Agastya, Shiva Vakya, all these siddhas, beings with supernormal powers who came to help us. They knew the dark times were coming, so they wrote down a lot of information for us through predictions in these palm leaves, and they are copied by monks over the course of the millennia. And they're actually, the Naadi readings that I've had were all about 1,000 years old. They were all recorded around 1,000 years ago by these sages, but then they were copied over and over. There are some lineages of priests who do that. They're very accurate because they're very pure beings. They come just for in this life. There are amazing people that I could have never imagined because I grew up in a normal way. Okay, I want a new Vespa. I want I want to go to Paris to buy that bag. Or like silly things, but at that time as a teenager, they were important. But then I realized their beings were, since their childhood, they're drawn to the divine. So was I, by the way. I only talked to Jesus and angels. And yeah, for me, they were real. I saw them. And we come really to perfect our lives. There'll be a time when we'll be born and we'll just want to help others. It's just, it's unthinkable maybe now, but that's what we try to do even now. But there'll be a time when we have no personal desires. We only want to relieve suffering. I've had teachers who were on that path and they just came and they remembered why they came. They remember everything, their past lives, etc. And they came to eradicate hunger, to eradicate social injustice, right? But not from a political point of view, because I also believe that the spiritual solution is the best. We all have to do our own part.
Absolutely. My mind gets blown at the thought of the Naadi readings because I've never been to India, only in past lives. I have past life memories, but just the thought of being able to access it in 2020 is phenomenal. Australia, we don't have access to that sort of thing, I don't think, unless I've just... So yeah, that was really interesting to me that you wrote about that. But the other thing that was very interesting, you talked about the light orbs of the siddhas and the light bodies and the ascended masters. And I just wanted you to talk on that because it's so hard in Western cultures to get past the notion of the I am alone. I am just me. There's nobody here to support me. At the end of the day, I'm born alone. I die alone. Nothing else is real other than what's in our face. But yet you talk about the light orbs, and I have experienced lots and lots of light orbs. So I just thought I'd let you explain that in terms of your understanding of it.
Yeah, nothing is really as it appears.
Yeah.
We have this illusion that we have a body. We don't even have a body. It's just, it's not material. It's not flesh and blood. As it appears to us. Just look at quantum physics. They have proved beyond any shred of doubt that we don't have a locality. The universe is not physical. They can't find it. It's just projection, right? It's our consciousness. So we come for experience and we think we have a body, but we are pure light. We're photonic light. That's it. That's science. From that point, so the yogis are scientists. They've looked into it for thousands of times, years. Also, we had a longer lifespan in the past. That knowledge is lost, but we find here and there some information. Abraham lived 1,000 years. There are beings who lived even longer than that. Sages who lived 30,000 years, and some who are eternal. So we are pure light, and we are consciousness. We're just one, but we don't see that. We just are trying to return to our source, where we have total bliss and total sameness with who we are fundamentally. So we can turn into light. Even Einstein said that. And Jesus also said that, right? He said, this corruption, our pretty body, is a corruption. You cannot go to heaven with it. So you have to realize who you really are. You're God. They threw stones at him. When he said, I am God, my mentor talks about that Jesus said, and he's Indian. My mentor, his name is Dr. Pillai. He says, when Jesus said, I am God, they threw stones at him. But then he said, but also you are God. And they threw more stones. People were not ready for that information. Yeah, we don't realize that we're pure light and we can turn into light. The body turns into light. Jesus said in a blink of an eye. And the yogis also say, yeah, in a flash, you become light. And now we are in a time, I've been meaning to tell you this, Katisha. I think you already know, but there's so much more light on this planet now than there was, say, 100 years ago. This light is waking us up. We've been asleep literally, we didn't know who we were. Just, I'm not saying they weren't sages 100 years ago, please. No. I know the truth about that. But more people than ever now are becoming intuitive, even fully psychic. And maybe they don't go around. You won't see anything in the New York Times or in some other major media, the famous ones. And we have a lot of illusion about that, about reality, because we have a sense of reality that is really, we forget who we are and what we can do. We can do anything. We really are fully omniscient. We have supernormal powers. And that's always been my passion since I was a little kid. Like at 6, 7, I was reading the miracles of Jesus. Then I realized they were called the Gospels. I didn't care about the formality of it all. I just wanted to know about the miracles over and over. I was obsessed with them. And I would start again when I finished. So my whole life, I really wanted to know, how can we have a better life? How can we have everything instantaneously heal, fulfill our desires so we can just not to suffer so much? So that's in my childhood, I had maybe a simpler understanding, but I felt that's possible. I knew it was possible, probably from past lives, because I've been doing this for many lives. I found out I was a Vedic expert in many lives. I guided kings even in South India, but also in other regions of the world. But Mu, right? Mu, I think it was one of the civilizations, first civilization, the motherland in this cycle. In the not recorded because it's lost, but many people have remembered because in this past 100,000 years, we have that beginning, new beginning, because I believe there are alien beings who come to the earth plane to do the work of the divine. They see the life when there's destruction. And so the earth is always recreated. We have that also in the Vedas, always destroyed and recreated over and over again. Science is catching up, but a lot is not. We're not taught. Oh, you're not beginning here. They want us to believe that we started 6,000 years ago, or that we're just flesh and blood beings randomly appeared here on earth. That's not how it works. So some people are remembering they were in Atlantis. I must have bad memories about Atlantis, because even the name does not make me want to go deeper. But I do have a general understanding of how that works. We don't want to look into it. Probably there was a lot of suffering. I've had one or more lives there too. But I did remember Mu, and there was a lot of love, a lot of happiness, a lot of joy, and a closer connection to the divine for that time. And I didn't know anything. I had to learn it from scratch in this life. I didn't know. But the name always evoked something in me, like awakened something that I wanted to know more. Yeah. And also I remember lives in ancient Rome. I'm not gonna guess like this, but there was a lot of suffering in every life. There was wisdom, I was decently evolved, but also a lot of mistakes. I remember that I was a priestess in a temple. I've always hated this temple. It's a very beautiful temple, ancient Roman temple in Rome. I remember that past life during a yoga session when I was being trained. I was in this school that was like an ancient Gurukulam. It was a university with Ursuline nuns. And within the campus, it was divine. There were all these courses of yoga, and like the real path, real yoga. So we sat cross-legged for 12 hours. We practiced 3 hours of yoga. We learned from the books. We learned Ayurveda. We received Reiki. It was amazing, amazing. So at that time, in one of these yoga poses that lasted a little longer, I remember in my past life, and I thought, oh, that's why I always hated the temple of Vesta in Rome. There was no reason. It was gorgeous. All tourists come to take pictures and of themselves at the Vesta temple. I remember, yeah, it was very painful.
Yeah.
So there was a priestess there of Vestale. Vestale is these women who lived in the temple, and they, I don't know, they prayed and to the goddess. Yeah, it was the goddess path. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it, that you can have a reaction. You won't like me saying this, but I always thought that I went to London when I was in my 20s, and I remember saying to my mum and dad, oh, I'm going to move to London and then I'm going to move to New York. Except for I did go on a visit to New York, and I had like your reaction to the temple of just like, I couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know why. And then I also had reactions and memories. I could see specific cars, like right down to the color and the shape and the sheen on the car, the color of my hair, and all the memories pieced back to me from linkages to songs that I knew the words to that were significant to New York. And so, yeah, you can piece these together and then you know exactly why you have this reaction. And it's just that process of working through it and saying, it's all right, I'm not there now. There are these lessons that I had to learn. Let me work through those so that I realize that defines that lifetime, not this lifetime. Let me heal that so it's not an issue for me anymore. Yeah, so it's very interesting that you had that reaction, because I agree that you can have instantaneous reactions and memories to locations. And
sometimes it's a name, sometimes it's a location, but it's in a flash and it's totally intuitive.
Yeah.
I have a lot of trust in intuition because it bypasses the rational mind, which is, we need it to function, but it's limited. And you said people are suffering with this eye. Yeah, because we have been taught that we're nothing. That the last time I was in a church, I was told, you're dust and you return to dust. I have no illusions that the body may do that, but I know who I am. I am not dust. I am a divine being, or child of God, or whichever resonates with you. In yoga, we are God. In the path of the yogis, we are not simply children. We're God. We're just remembering, and we're removing the ignorance that's blocking us from realizing it. Yes, we can do anything. We can fly. And in fact, the yogis do that, but I've seen pictures, but they're not publicized. There's a desire to keep us, and maybe that helps us to wake up later.
And I think that each time we have that sort of experience with a religion or a group or an organization that tells you you are limited in your being and your scope, that disconnects us from the energy of who we really are and understanding our infinite nature. And that a lot of people, I'm guessing in this lifetime, are remembering lifetimes with trauma with religion, or experiencing trauma with religion, so that they can see that they are not what they've been taught, so that then they can reconnect to source energy, or whatever you want to call it. Is my way of understanding it, is to heal that incorrect perception about the fact that you come from source.
I agree. That resonates with me. I think that we are taught a lot of things, so one day we can wake up and say, no, that's not true. And it's okay. We have chosen to meet people who are not fully conscious, so they can awaken the consciousness in us, and they can bring us more understanding through. Unfortunately, we don't learn only by going to a baby shower, going to a pretty wedding, going on vacation. How do we learn? Sometimes we learn through tough experiences,
Yeah.
when we're out of our comfort zone. And in fact, I've heard, and I don't know if this is true because I don't have a reference in the Vedas for that, most people remember the time they died. Why? That incredible trauma stays with us more, especially if we have a life of materialism. Those people were not fully conscious. Nobody is, except for maybe the masters or a fully evolved being of millions of years ahead of us. But we remember when the body left, but that's not who we are. So maybe that stays longer in our memory, in our physical body also. We have it, maybe in the DNA. There is a subtle body. We don't talk about it in the West, but the yogis know there are all these layers. And you can feel it, right? If you put a hand, you can feel the energy. If you're Reiki masters, they can feel it. So we have a lot of wonderful discoveries coming for us because there's all this light, and light is intelligence, light is evolution, and it's physical. It's really doing things to us physically, mentally. And I believe we're in for a wonderful surprise, like not limited, and there is a lot more. Of course, it's a time of destruction and confusion too. We shouldn't ignore that, but that's not why we're here, right? In fact, we need to realize that it's enough. We've done enough destruction, and we're not different. All these religions have done a great job at separating everyone. I don't know why we even do that, but anyway, we can call God in so many ways, or if you don't want to call it God, call it the universe. But we need to stop killing each other in the name of supposedly of these gods. Yeah.
I think that what's also interesting is that with all the solar storms and the light that is coming to Earth at the moment, that it's been after a period where for 3 years people were shut in their houses, right, for lockdown, right,
Yes.
and didn't get to see the sun much. And now it's, get outside and sit in the sun and receive the light codes or the spiritual knowledge that comes through.
Exactly. So
the
that's
sun.
Wonderful.
To those who are listening, I will pop up on the screen the 2 books that Lalitha has. And if people want to get in contact with you to either book a one-on-one reading or to learn from you, I'll put all the social media links in the show notes. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I love that conversation. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah.